Pam Bondi is going through a tough time.
20 days of war with Iran have kept the Epstein files off the front pages, but today the drama is back and it's focused on Pam Bondi. House Oversight subpoenaed her, and both Democrats and Republicans did so. But now Bondi is refusing to explicitly commit to her appearance, which, by the way, is scheduled for April 14th. Lawmakers say they need to see her because there are serious questions they want to ask her about whether all the files have actually been released, about the administration slow walking some of the disclosures, about the administration allegedly covering up for powerful men, including but not limited to the president himself, and about investigative leads that were not followed. Senator Wyden is latching on to that last part right there. He's calling into question a 2015 memorandum prepared by the DOJ for the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA. The heavily redacted document showed that there was an interagency investigation into, quote, illegitimate wire transfers, which are tied to illicit drug and or prostitution activities. Wyden wants that memo unredacted and released to the public. And he says DOJ is standing in the way. Are they?
Now, you've probably already heard, but Pam Bondi did not show up to her scheduled deposition with the Oversight Committee.
And even after being fired, she's still trying to evade our legal subpoena and cover for her former boss, Donald Trump. She should be ashamed.
While she may try to run from accountability, Oversight Dems are not letting up.
We are continuing to demand that she come in and answer our questions. And if she doesn't, we're going to hold her in contempt.
No one is above the law. That includes Bondi, Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein's other wealthy friends.
Oversight Republicans must enforce our bipartisan subpoena and schedule her testimony now.
Republicans shouldn't let her off the hook now and assist in the cover-up. If they won't act, we will fight back.
Survivors deserve justice, and we demand answers.
This should deeply concern every single American, regardless of party or politics. Pam Bondi was formally subpoenaed by Congress to testify under oath yesterday about her handling of the Epstein files and evidence. She simply just didn't show up. Democrats in the House Oversight Committee are now moving forward with contempt of Congress proceedings, pointing out that the subpoena remains in effect even after her departure from the Justice Department. At the same time, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has drawn a hard and final line in the sand. The Department of Justice will not be releasing any additional Epstein files. What has already been made public is all we are ever going to get. Period. Now let's be brutally honest about what this actually means, because this is starting to look like the world's longest and most calculated game of keep away with the most critical evidence imaginable. Survivors have waited years for full transparency, for real accountability, for the unredacted truth of who was on those hard drives, who appears on those videos, and who protected whom. Yet every single time we even get close, subpoenas are ignored, doors are slammed shut, and the powerful are quietly shielded once again. This is no longer about left or right. It's about something far more fundamental. Whether the elite in this country can continue protecting their own while victims are left waiting in the dark year after year. Contempt of Congress might sound serious on paper, but without real consequences, it's nothing more than another round of expensive political theater, designed to make it look like something's happening when, in reality, nothing is. Americans deserve far better than endless excuses and carefully measured breadcrumbs. We deserve the full, unvarnished truth, no matter whose name appears on those lists. So what do you think? Is this the final chapter? The moment where the door is permanently closed on Epstein accountability? Or will enough public pressure finally force these files, these hard drives, and this evidence into the light once and for all? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony.
Trump just said the Epstein survivors haven't testified under oath, and somehow they should in order to be believed. That's frankly a shocking statement, considering how much the survivors over the years have given their stories. Back in 2007, they gave their stories to the FBI. It is a crime to lie to FBI agents. They also have filed lawsuits over the years and told their stories in depositions. It is perjury to lie during a deposition. The person who hasn't testified under oath is actually Pam Bondi. Trump conveniently fired her when a subpoena was pending for her to testify under oath in front of the House Oversight Committee. And now 3 of the GOP members don't want to hold her in contempt for failing to appear. Now, it seems that Melania, when she said that we should hear from the survivors herself, may have just been trying to distract us all from the fact that the person who knows why the DOJ hasn't released the rest of the files is failing to come and do her job by testifying, despite the fact that she had a subpoena against her. And Trump is just reiterating that by somehow shifting the responsibility from the law enforcement and DOJ who have failed to do their jobs to get accountability and justice back to the survivors who have given enough of their stories under penalty of perjury or subject to crime. At this point, the DOJ, do your job.
Mr. President, the First Lady last week called on Congress to further look into and uncover the truth on the Epstein files, the Epstein saga. Do you believe that there should be a public hearing for more of these Epstein survivors?
Well, I'm okay with it. I think we've had a lot of public hearings. I'm okay with it, but I understand that the women didn't want to go under oath. That's what I heard, that the women, the victims or whatever, they refused to go under oath, which was a little surprising. No, Melania felt strongly about it because she was accused of that I met her through Epstein, but it turned out to be totally false. It was a falsehood.
Pam Bondi refused to give testimony about the Epstein files. I'm sure Trump fired her for the reason. He knew that we are going to reach this moment whereby they'll need her to give a testimony what she found out in the Epstein files. This is not fantastic. Okay, let us hear what some of our creators are saying.
Today was the day, and she didn't show. As promised, Pam Bondi did not appear for her deposition about her handling or mishandling of the Epstein files. And now Democrats are threatening to hold her in contempt of Congress. Republicans, at least right now, are oddly silent. Look, Pam Bondi was legally obligated to show up, according to the bipartisan subpoena she received. That subpoena said Bondi, as the person, not Bondi as the Attorney General, had important information that she needed to hand over to the committee today in a deposition scheduled for April 14th. But as I reported in this video last week, the Department of Justice said Bondi would not testify because she's no longer the Attorney General. At the time, Democrats and one Republican, Representative Nancy Mace, said, "Not today. Pam Bondi doesn't just have to tell us that she's not showing up. That's not how this works." But last week, the Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, was silent. He did not support issuing the subpoena for Pam Bondi in the first place, but he was forced to issue it because his committee voted to make it happen. Well, since then, he's been talking very openly about how it's unnecessary for Pam Bondi to come in. Well, between last week and today, the committee did not formally withdraw Pam Bondi's subpoena. It's still there, and the deposition was still scheduled for today. The ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, put out a statement this morning saying Pam Bondi is evading a lawful congressional subpoena by failing to appear before the Oversight Committee for a deposition about the Epstein files and the White House cover-up. This subpoena applies to her regardless of her title. She must appear before the committee, and if she continues to ignore the law, Oversight Democrats will move forward with contempt proceedings immediately. Now, I just want to point out that when Bill and Hillary Clinton were first subpoenaed by this very same committee, they said the same thing Bondi did. In fact, they didn't show up for their depositions because they said they had no information about Epstein and they didn't have to. Well, When they skipped their depositions, Chairman Comer was furious, and he and all the Republicans and even some Democrats actually voted to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress because of it. After that contempt vote, Comer put out a statement saying, and I quote, "By voting to hold the Clintons in contempt, the committee sent a clear message. No one is above the law, and justice must be applied equally, regardless of position, pedigree, or prestige." Now, before the full House could vote on that contempt of Congress resolution, the Clintons scheduled their depositions, and they ultimately came in and they both answered questions for hours. But now that it's Pam Bondi who's not showing up, at least right now, no Republican is calling for contempt charges. In fact, Chairman Comer posted this criticizing the Democrats' statement about a contempt resolution for Bondi. Comer called it purely performative. But then, here's the interesting part. Comer just dropped a nugget that he is working on rescheduling Pam Bondi's deposition. Now, that is the first official on-the-record word we've heard from Comer about rescheduling. Representative Ro Khanna, who co-sponsored the Epstein Files Transparency Act and actually sits on the Oversight Committee, talked today about what he thinks is actually going on with Pam Bondi.
And we have the votes to subpoena her again, if it comes down to it, or to hold her in contempt. Remember, there were the votes to hold President Clinton in contempt when he was not coming and cooperating with the committee. President Clinton is not in office, but he was relevant to the investigation. And certainly Pam Bondi is relevant to the investigation. And Nancy Mason and I wrote to Comer saying that we expect him to reschedule this. He is going to try to reschedule it. We need to let that process play out. If not, we will have the votes to hold her in contempt. And that is something that I don't think she would want. So I fully expect that she will come in. This is just a delay tactic.
It's unclear when Pam Bondi's deposition will be rescheduled or if it will be rescheduled. Here it is. It's official, signed by the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Attorney General Pam Bondi just got served with a subpoena over her handling of the release of the Epstein files. The letter that was attached to the subpoena and was released publicly said the committee has questions regarding the Department of Justice's handling of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his associates and its compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. As Attorney General, you are directly responsible for overseeing the department's collection, review, and determinations regarding the release of the files pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And the committee therefore believes that you possess valuable insight into these efforts. Now, there have been accusations from both Republicans and Democrats that Bondi and her Department of Justice have been hiding, deleting Epstein file documents that they find problematic for whatever reason, that the DOJ has released victim names and then redacted names of people who should not have their names redacted. The law overwhelms.
So I've been reading a lot of the comments to my video I posted the other day about Pam Bondi, her failure to show up to the bipartisan subpoena, the deposition she was supposed to have under oath, and what we're doing next about it. And to be clear, we are moving forward with contempt of Congress. Now, a lot of people put comments saying like, why do you arrest her? Issue a warrant for arrest. What are you going to do about it? All these different comments. And I get why you're asking these questions. It's frustrating because you see Trump doing whatever the hell he wants and you want to know what the hell are you doing about it? I thought I'd make a video to educate everybody. What we can do about it is hold her in contempt. When the United States Congress holds you in contempt, that is the first step to accountability. There's two types of contempt we can hold her in. There's criminal contempt and civil contempt. If we hold her in criminal contempt, it gets referred to the Department of Justice for prosecution. We know who runs the Department of Justice, so that's something that we're obviously considering. But the second type of contempt is civil contempt. And if we hold her in civil contempt, it gets sent to a court of law. And she will have to defend herself in front of a judge. And throughout history, people have faced accountability and consequences when it was referred to a court. So we are moving forward with contempt to hold her accountable and to make sure that she has consequences for breaking the law. I'll keep you all updated on what we're doing, but we are moving forward in holding her accountable and making sure there's consequences for what she has done. Yes, it's not enough to just talk about it. Yes, it's not enough to just post about it. Yes, it's not enough to just make videos, but I'm making this video so that way everybody knows what's going on. I just want you guys to be updated. And so we are moving forward with contempt because Pam Bondi has to face consequences and be held accountable.
I think they are petrified over what Pam Bondi is going to say. I think this is all calculated to not have her testify. Perhaps because she herself may not be willing to lie and lose her livelihood. And whatever she knows is going to be very bad for them.
The optics of Pam Bondi's career a decade ago compared to today, Donald Trump essentially nuked it. As Florida Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, Bondi promoted initiatives called Zero Tolerance for Human Trafficking. Then she entered the Trump sphere. Her entire PR as a Florida Attorney General got hijacked into this now mainstream pedophile cover-up. So now, what is Attorney General Pam Bondi, or former Attorney General Pam Bondi's legacy going to be? The Epstein files. That clip on Fox News where she says, I have the Epstein files on my desk. So there is a very real chance she was going to come out and she was going to say something while she was under oath that maybe would go back to 2013 Pam Bondi. So just the change when people enter the MAGA universe and lose all of their morals is absurd. Same thing with JD Vance in 2016. He was a never Trump guy. All of these people around Trump lose their morals. And now the reporting is they're expecting some form of a pardon, or he's promising some form of a pardon jokingly in passing. I don't think it's a joke. I think it's dead serious.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there shouldn't be a witch hunt. And there are a lot of people in those files who are totally innocent, who may be mentioned because they were in a news story, or maybe mentioned because someone was talking about them in an email. And I do not want this to be in any way like a McCarthy hunt that just because you're in the Epstein files, you're guilty.
Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? Not accused, not suspected, but innocent until proven guilty,
Social
right?
social media. That's what happened.
Exactly. Cancel culture, right? Like the moment that it's even, implicated or suggested that you've done something wrong, you are instantly now proving your own innocence, and it should be the other way around, right? So again, I'm a woman, I'm a mother of a little girl. Like I want anyone that was complicit in this to go to jail. But I am not down for, just allowing the public to, I don't want to say crucify, but basically, witch hunt these people and ruin their lives, because we've seen how badly this happens or how quickly it can happen. People hate them. People are calling for them to resign. I think that if I could be honest, and I think I might have said this at the end of the episode, I wish that this never happened this way.
Last September, the president sent a message to the then Attorney General, Pam Bondi. He's imploring her to charge former FBI Director James Comey. I'm sure you know the post well. If you're nominated and you're confirmed as the next Attorney General, what do you do with a message like that?
The president, look, I do exactly what we did with the message last time. And we have thousands and thousands of investigations going on in this, federal investigations going on in this country right now. There is outsized focus on a handful of them because they involve individuals that the president has had significant issues, for good reason, by the way, with in the past. That will continue for the rest of the time he's president. It was the case during the Biden presidency. I mean, that's what being the commander in chief is about. I mean, I think the fact that he encourages or directs or expects the Department of Justice to do its job, that those type of messages do not faze me. As a matter of fact, I want a president that does that. I want a president that actually sets his agenda and then sticks to it. And so that's something that the president's done his whole life, even when he's not, commander in chief. And so, look, that type of message, he knows that we're doing great work. And believe me, if we weren't, I would expect that he would call me. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Well, today is Tuesday, April 14th, and this is supposed to be the day that Pam Bondi was subpoenaed to testify in front of the Oversight House Committee regarding her mishandling of those files. And baby, she did not show up. She didn't show up. So usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, usually in a situation like this is disobeying a court order, correct? And just like any other citizen, if you disobey a court order, you're put in jail, right? In simpler terms. I don't know all those fancy justice terms, but jail time, right? So yeah, she didn't show up. Big and bad, just didn't show up. I wonder what will happen. Probably nothing, right? But yeah, she deserves to be held accountable just like any other citizen would.
The Department of Justice says Pam Bondi will not appear for her deposition about her handling of the Epstein files. That's according to a letter that was sent to the House Oversight Committee this morning. The Department of Justice says she is no longer required to testify about what happened with the Epstein files and the rollout of the files because she is no longer the Attorney General. Therefore, she does not have the ability to accurately testify on the matter. Now, it's important to know that on a bipartisan basis, so both Democrats and Republicans in the House Oversight Committee voted to subpoena Pam Bondi. That is a legal document. That is happening. The deposition is scheduled for April 14th. However, as I have been reporting, the Republican chairman of that House Oversight Committee, James Comer, did not support that subpoena. In fact, Comer has kind of been looking for a way to get Pam Bondi out of testifying about her handling of the Epstein files. Well, that doesn't seem to be good enough for at least one Republican. Republican Representative Nancy Mace posted this morning, demanding that Chairman Comer reaffirm that Pam Bondi must come in and testify, and reaffirm that Pam Bondi was subpoenaed as Pam Bondi, not in her capacity as the Attorney General. Of course, it's worth noting that all the Democrats on the committee are also demanding that Pam Bondi come in and testify. So it is unclear what is going to happen next and whether or not Pam Bondi will show up on April 14th.
United States citizens, I want you to put your hands together and give a warm round of applause to Miss Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of the United States. Yeah, she was fired today, and she now joins that list of evil white women who continue to protect eviler white men, and then they get burned in the end. Yay! Congratulations! Reportedly, Trump fired her because of how she handled the files, people. Because of how she handled the files. But from where I'm standing, she did exactly what the fuck they wanted her to do. The same files that under Bondi, the DOJ removed tens of thousands of pages. They redacted hundreds of names. The DOJ illegally withheld files that had Trump's name, especially considering the files related to the allegations of Trump sexually abusing a minor. This is all according to NPR. They redacted so much of the files when they decided to release it to us. It was to the point where lawmakers argued that the redactions were made to protect the elites instead of the survivors. And this is all according to CBC. So why fire her? She's doing what you wanted. She's literally doing what you wanted. She successfully botched the release of the files. You understand? She downplayed the number of victims, and she backtracked on the existence of a client list. She's doing exactly what you wanted her to do. So already going through all of that research, I'm like, nah, she did not get fired because of how she handled the files. That's not the reason why. But let's also talk about more of the things that she did that was in benefit of the Trump regime. So I'm trying to understand why the fuck she got fired. Did you guys know that Bondi, former Attorney General of the United States of America, had dropped over 23,000 criminal investigations in the first 6 months of Trump's presidency? The source, ProPublica. She did so because the Trump presidency is in favor of prosecuting immigration cases, not criminal ones. Like, that's what he wanted her to do. Also, please note that many of those cases that got dismissed pertain to white-collar crime and corporate enforcement, right? But guess how many immigration cases that Bondi actually prosecuted within the first 6 months? 32,000. She dropped 23,000 criminal cases and prosecuted 32,000 immigration cases. That sounds like that's what Trump wanted her to do. She also helped to see that the corporate crimes ran smoothly, that they continued to run smoothly. The Trump administration had dropped 159 out of 166 enforcement actions against big corporations. You know, some of Trump's friends. This was all under Bondi. The source, Public Citizen. With Bondi's DOJ, right? At least 18 companies avoided $3.1 billion in penalties. $3.1 billion in penalties. An action that I'm sure many of these big companies were happy to see, thrilled to see, so much so that over 30 of those companies and businesses that had enforcement actions dropped against them, they made donations towards Trump's inauguration or towards the White House ballroom. And even though we're saying in the first 6 months of Trump's presidency, understand it's only really been 4. His inauguration was in January. It's been 4 months. 4. And this evil white woman did all of that shit to protect these eviler white men and still got burned in the end. Still lost her job in the end. Has no reputation. Has lost the respect of the entire American nation. Hey, good for you. Good for you. But anyway, though, to get back on track, she did exactly what he wanted her to do. So that leads me to believe, because, you know, Donald Trump, he possessed the characteristic traits of a person who's always used money to get what he wants. I'm pretty sure he wanted her to make the entire files disappear. I'm pretty sure he wanted her to make everything disappear. He probably was asking for her to do something that was logistically impossible to get done. And so he fired her, thinking that he could get somebody else in her position and they're going to actually do what he wants her to do, or them to do. Pam Bondi, I hope that everywhere you go, you were harassed by American citizens, United States citizens. I hope that they call you out, they make you feel uncomfortable. I hope that they make you have to retreat and leave America. Because what you did, protecting these evil, sick men, and you didn't even have the job for a full, how long? How long? You wasn't even here for the entire full term. And look at you now, jobless, no employment, right? I'm sure it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt you too much, because I'm pretty sure they slid you a couple of dollars, a couple of checks or whatever for you to be as nasty and evil as you are. You understand? For you to actually turn a blind eye towards the victims and to protect the actual fucking perpetrators. Yeah, I know for a fact they had to have given you something, but you have lost the respect of the American nation. And I hope that every time that you encounter a United States citizen, that they make your life a living hell.
Have you ever been fired? And yet you have to keep on defending your boss for his bad acts. This is what Pam is facing. They fired her, but she has to defend Donald.
So it looks like Trump did fire Pam Bondi to keep her from testifying, to cover up for the men inside the files, because Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche just said she's not going to testify because Trump fired her, even though the subpoena says she's supposed to show up anyway in front of the House Oversight Committee, but she's refusing to. There is no other reason for her not to testify other than to cover up the truth and from keeping us from finding out why they want to protect men who abuse women and children. Democrats are furious. They are saying they will file contempt charges. And in my opinion, they need to do it right this second. And don't give her one more minute of peace, because none of the victims have a minute of peace right now. Todd Blanche, who is the acting attorney general, should know better, and he does, so he's lying. When a subpoena is given to someone, it's given to them in their name, not their position, because he hasn't offered to show up in her place. We will see what happens, but this administration has no interest in finding justice for the victims or to stop the men who are still out there right now. This entire administration is covering up for the men in the files, and they all need to go.
Hey, I'm outside the committee room for oversight and government reform. It is April 14th. Today is the day that Attorney General Pam Bondi, or now former Attorney General Pam Bondi, was supposed to come before the House Oversight Committee to testify under oath about her botching of the Epstein files release and her role in the cover-up. So what happened was that just a couple of months ago, there was a bipartisan subpoena against Pam Bondi. Even though Donald Trump fired her, that is irrelevant. The subpoena still stands and she still needs to testify under oath. Donald Trump, Todd Blanche, who's the interim attorney general, are doing everything they can to make sure that she does not appear. They even had this whole fake hearing right before she was fired to try to make that count as part of her complying, which is not the case at all. This is unacceptable and it is illegal. And I want to remind people of how Chairman Comer handled this when the Clintons were negotiating with the committee about their subpoena. He tried to hold them in criminal contempt of Congress. If Pam Bondi does not appear before the Oversight Committee immediately to testify in front of the American people under oath, Democrats on the Oversight Committee will move as quickly as we can and use every possible tool that we have to hold her in contempt. This is urgent. She was at the center of the Epstein files cover-up, the most egregious cover-up in American history, and we are not going to stop until she comes forward, until we have justice for every single survivor.
You're entitled to defend your former boss. Anyway, let us hear what these beautiful creators are saying.
Pam Bondi, it's been over a month now and you're still flipping through whatever those pages are. We really need to have just one serious conversation with you. And wait, are those Shannon tickets?
It's Donald Trump's favorite.
I highly doubt that.
You wish you knew.
Not really. And you might want to stop flipping through your pages for what we're about to share with you. Or not, whatever. Unfortunately, you are no longer Attorney General.
I'm Attorney General.
Well, you're not anymore.
This is so ridiculous.
We're sorry for the news.
I don't believe it for a second. Donald Trump would never take that away from me.
Well, he did.
Well, I'm not buying it. Losers.
Well, it's all real, and your acting successor is Todd Blanche.
Shame on you. You have no idea what's at bay. Maybe go check your 401k. Bottoms up to the US of A.
Okay, we're done here.
Breaking news, Pam Bondi is now facing potential charges for failing to comply with a subpoena that ordered her to testify in front of Congress today about the Epstein files. Well, she refused to comply. She ignored the subpoena, which was not optional, by the way. The law required her to come give a deposition to the House Oversight Committee, and now they'll likely hold her in contempt of Congress, led by Robert Garcia and Summer Lee, among others. It appears increasingly likely that Donald Trump may have fired Pam Bondi to also try and prevent her from testifying, because now the Department of Injustice, as it's referred to under the Trump administration, is saying Pam Bondi does not need to comply with the subpoena because she received it as Attorney General, even though she received that subpoena as Pam Bondi, the citizen. Sure enough, things are about to go from bad to worse for the disgraced former AG, as she's likely to see charges leveled against her, when in reality she needs to be prosecuted and put behind bars. Bondi, you're going to be put behind bars.
So Pam Bondi didn't show up to testify on the Epstein files. She was scheduled to testify in front of Congress, but now they're threatening to hold her in contempt of court the same way that they were threatening, well, Republicans were threatening Bill Clinton when he didn't show up to testify on the Epstein files. So now that Pam Bondi hasn't showed up, she's not testified in front of Congress, they have to move forward because we have to find out what she knows, who told her or didn't tell her to hold this cover up, what is in her brain and mind, and who she's protecting. Because the information that she knows everything that's in the Epstein files. She knows everything related to Jeffrey Epstein and Tronald Dump. She knows all of these names, and the only way that we are ever going to get to the bottom of the Epstein files and holding those in power accountable, the same way that we are accountable, if we are subpoenaed to testify, we have to show up. And they have to show up too. So I'm really hopeful and excited that they are planning to hold Bondi in contempt, and hopefully we're going to get to the bottom of this.
This is actually insane. Attorney General Pam Bondi just got hit with a bipartisan subpoena. And instead of testifying under oath, she tried to replace it with a fake hearing. No oath, no recording, no transcript? Are you friggin' serious? That means she could say whatever she wants and face zero consequences, even if it's not true. Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari straight up said the whole thing was designed so Bondi wouldn't have to testify under oath. So what did lawmakers do? They asked one question over and over and over again. Are you going to follow the law and show up? And Bondi wouldn't answer. Then it got worse. When Congresswoman Summer Lee asked if the subpoena would be enforced, Chairman James Comer dismissed her by calling it bitching. That's when Democrats walked out. Let that sink in. The Attorney General of the United States is being investigated over the Epstein case. and is allegedly dodging a sworn deposition. April 14th, that's the date. Show up under oath or prove everyone right. What do you think she's going to do? Share your thoughts in the comment section and follow me for more.
Surprise, surprise. Pam Bondi will no longer show up to testify about the Epstein files or to comply with a subpoena she received from the House Oversight Committee because according to the Department of Justice, she's no longer Attorney General. Therefore, she doesn't need to comply with the subpoena she received as Attorney General to show up for her deposition on April 14th. Folks, this just goes to show that Donald Trump fired her to prevent her from being forced to testify. They tried to pull a fast one. They're now claiming that because she's no longer Attorney General, there is no obligation for her to show up. But this is not going to work for them the way they think it is. There are already efforts being made by the House Oversight Committee to hold her in contempt of Congress because they did not subpoena her as Attorney General. They subpoenaed her as Pam Bondi. She will show up and she will be forced to show up or she will face consequences for not doing so. I'll be doing a full breakdown of this on my YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe. Link is in my bio, and we will discuss all of this. Let me know your thoughts as well.
I'm joined now by Congressman Jared Moskowitz. Congressman, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
So we have an update here as it relates to Pam Bondi's scheduled deposition that was supposed to take place.
Tell me, what's the update?
Supposed to have taken place April 14th. Obviously, that date came and went like a fart in a hurricane. She didn't show up. So is Congress going to relinquish its desire to have her come and testify now that she's no longer AG?
Well, first, let me say, this was the scenario that many Democrats, myself included, were concerned about, which is, the Republicans threatening to hold the Clintons in contempt if they didn't show up. Would they hold that same standard if it were Pam Bondi or a Republican that was subpoenaed? And now we're finding out it's unclear if the same people that subpoena Pam Bondi are willing to hold her in contempt. To be clear, she has to show up. The subpoena has nothing to do with her being Attorney General. It's her. She has to go. And so, she didn't show up at the current date. They're renegotiating maybe for a second date. But if she does not show, if she's unwilling to come, then she needs to be held in contempt. The committee needs to hold her in contempt. And then Congress will need to hold her in contempt. That's how this needs to work. Or congressional subpoenas no longer matter. Also, this will get resolved because Robert Garcia most likely will be chair of that committee in January. So really, if she's not held in contempt in the next 5 or 6 months, she'll be held in contempt immediately in January for not showing up. That being said, the flip side of that is, look, can you blame her? Who wants to spend 4 hours with James Comer, right? I don't blame her for not wanting to go and be in a basement with James for 4 hours. So, on that respect, I side with the former Attorney General.
Well, look, I think that was an astute point about the fact that they had such harsh words for the Clintons, the prospect of Hillary Clinton not coming in, even though she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet and James Comer and these other Republicans were perfectly content to threaten contempt, and yet now you have the Attorney General who has a lawfully issued subpoena, was supposed to be there on April 14th. That date came and went, and now we haven't heard, we haven't heard James Comer utter a single word about Pam.
And Brian, we got real questions for the former Attorney General. First of all, why did you give out the binders to the influencers to the beginning of this? Then why did you say the list was on your desk? Then why did you say there was no list? Why did the administration tell all the Republicans this was a Democratic hoax and MAGA for falling for the Democratic hoax? Were you instructed to not release any of the files by the president or the White House? Why did the White House say that this was a hostile act for anyone who wanted to sign up? Any Republican who wanted to sign up for the discharge petition. When when Republicans started signing that discharge petition, why did you bring some of those Republicans into the Situation Room? The place where the president goes when we're at a time of war. Why did you tell Republicans if they got their name off the discharge petition, you would put stuff in the budget for them, or you might primary them if they don't take their name off the discharge petition? Pam Bondi was supposedly in the Situation Room. Why did Kash Patel, under Pam Bondi, under oath, say that,
oh man, things are getting a little spicy. News alert. And I have been watching her ass since the beginning of these Epstein files, okay? So if you don't know who this woman is, you should know who she is, but in case you were living under a rock, let me give you a quick little update. This is Pam Bondi, okay? She is the U.S. Attorney General. And she is the woman that was handling the Epstein files, baby. Okay. And as you know, a lot of the files when they were released were redacted. They redacted some information, but they allowed, the names of victims to be shown. Like literally it has been a shit show with the Epstein files. Okay. And if you haven't been down that rabbit hole, if you haven't been down the rabbit hole, like I have, there's some shit going on. Okay. So there's a lot of information there. So anyway, so Pam has been moved to a military base because you know why? Her life is being threatened. Okay. The cartels want to get that ass. Okay. So she's now being threatened. So as you probably know or remember, the president of Venezuela was fucking kidnapped from Venezuela and he's in some prison somewhere, I think in New York City, but I'm not too sure. So anyway, the cartels are trying to get her. Her life is being threatened over how she handled the Epstein files. And one thing that made my ass itch was during the hearings that she was sitting there and the Epstein victims, some of the victims were standing behind her and she wouldn't even speak to them. So now Pam is in hiding. And I'm curious to know whether Pam is eventually gonna get fired. Because let me tell you something, that karma is coming.
So that means he used her and dumped her. Now, she's avoiding to appear and give a testimony about our former boss. You need to defend your former boss because you've been doing it. We've been reacting, saying that, you know what, that guy's he's not a good president. You came up and defend. So I think you should feel it now. Anyway, thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks. See you in the next video.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.